Just for everyone watching, there's not a serial killer. But the vast majority of these bodies are people that are living in these homeless encampments.
Multi-storey building under construction in Kenya's capital Nairobi collapsed on Friday, leaving an unknown number of people trapped beneath the rubble. Rescue workers have been digging through the debris looking for survivors. According to local media, the building was 16 stories high. The Kenya Red Cross said a response team was at the scene in an area of Nairobi known as South Sea. Authorities have not yet indicated why the building might have collapsed or how many people may have been killed, although the death toll is not expected to be high. Building collapses are common in Nairobi due to high demand for housing and developers often bypassing regulations or simply violating building codes. After 8 buildings collapsed and killed 15 people in Kenya in 2015, the presidency ordered an audit of buildings across the country to see if they were up to code. The National Construction Authority found that 58% of buildings in Nairobi were unfit for habitation.
A 6.5 magnitude earthquake shook Mexico City and parts of southwestern Guerrero state. President Claudia Sheinbaum was forced to evacuate the presidential palace during a regular morning press conference, along with the journalists who were in attendance when the earthquake struck. Now, the images from your screen are from Mexico City, where a CrossFit training session was interrupted as the quake's seismic alarm blared. And this, of course, forced the athletes to immediately pause mid-workout and to run to safety. Sheinbaum said that the earthquake's epicenter was situated about 15 kilometers from San Marcos in the southern state of Guerrero. That is about 230 kilometers from Mexico City. Preliminary reports indicate no serious damage in either Mexico City or in Guerrero.
A 6.5 magnitude earthquake struck southwest of San Marcos, Guerrero, at 7:58 a.m. In Guerrero, emergency protocols and patrols have been activated in the area. So far, no damage or, fortunately, any fatalities have been reported. As of 9 a.m., several small aftershocks have been recorded, the largest with a magnitude of 4.2. And in Mexico City, no damage has been reported so far, according to Laura Velasquez.
Now, those most strongly felt usually originate of the Guerrero state on the Pacific coast. On the 19th of September 1985, an 8.1 magnitude earthquake had devastated vast swathes of Mexico City, leaving nearly 13,000 dead. That was back in 1985.
Then it's war. Elon Musk responding after the Somali TikToker threatens his life. And this looks like this thing's blowing up. This whole Somali thing is blowing up to a way bigger story than what it initially was. It's spread out of Minnesota to pretty much clear across the country, and it's something definitely connected into the left, with the Dems funding and influencing every bit of it. So the woman on the right apparently went on TikTok. She was mocking Americans about the whole Somali-linked fraud that's going on, and then started talking about Elon and mentioned that you shouldn't worry about Elon. He's about to die. So that's pretty much a death threat thrown out there in the open. And of course, all the people around her and that support her will carry this ideology as well. This is part of normalizing this assassination culture, if you will, that has sprung up here. And obviously, Musk, Trump at the top, and the threats are flying. So Musk responds by saying, then it is war. He's put out a simple tweet to respond. See it right there. Then it is war. What is he going to do in response? In retaliation? We don't know. But I could tell you that he's going to make some moves here, and they're going to go hard on this. Trump already threatening to remove any status of anyone caught in this fraud scheme. Anyone that's in this country, they're going to get kicked out. And there may be an element to this to where it moves to attacks, full-blown, surrounding this whole thing. So I would watch this one closely.
Something serious is happening in West Africa, and Washington is right at the center here. Americans not allowed. That's the message coming from Russia's aligned nations. And it's not symbolic here, it's policy. You're watching Times XP. My name is Rithi Yatri. First came Washington's move here. The Trump administration placed Mali and Burkina Faso under the full US travel ban. No visas, no entry, no exceptions here. The reason? Well, security risk, weak governance, military rule. But Bamako and Ouagadougou, they did not stay silent. Instead, they backfired. Same rules, same ban, same treatment here. If Malians can't enter the US, if the citizens are blocked at American borders, then Americans are now blocked from these places as well. This is reciprocal diplomacy, tit for tat here. Listen to the message behind the ban. Mali and Burkina Faso say that the US did not consult us. The decision ignores ground realities here. In fact, they said that we reject being treated as security threat, and then comes the real signal here. Both countries are no longer looking for West. They are looking East. French troops expelled. US military presence pushed out. Russian advisors and Wagner-linked networks welcomed in. Now, this is not accidental. This is strategic realignment. You know what we are witnessing is a power shift right now. West Africa, once firmly under US influence, it is changing sides. Military governments are saying that we don't want lectures, we want leverage here. Russia offers that with fewer conditions, fewer questions, and more weapons here. Now, you know why this matters beyond Africa? This is not just about visas. This is about US influence that is shrinking, Russia expanding its footprints, and new blocs forming outside Western control. Here's a message that traveled straight to Washington. And this was not a routine speech. This was not diplomatic language. Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, he chose defiance. Let's set the scene here. Global markets are shaking. Trade routes are under pressure, and Donald Trump's tariff, they are back in the spotlight, targeting allies and rivals alike. Now, for small export-driven countries like Singapore, this is not theory, this is survival economics. Then Prime Minister Wong, he stood up and made one thing very, very clear, that Singapore will not blink. Not to pressure, not to threat, not even to the world's biggest economy. His words, they were firm, measured, but unmistakable. We will not be intimidated. We will not be afraid. Now, in Singaporean politics, that particular tone, it is rare. And when it appears, it matters. Let me tell you what he's exactly responding to. Trump-era tariffs that punish imports. Tariffs that disrupt global supply chain. Tariffs that small nation cannot control but must absorb. Wong told the parliament that Singapore did nothing wrong. Yet, it is still paying the price here. And then came the real warning here. He said that the world is entering a more dangerous phase, where rules are breaking down, where powers matter more than fairness, and where even friends can turn transactional. This was not just about Donald Trump. This was about a system that is collapsing. So here's a bigger picture. Let's slow this down. Singapore built its success on a lot of things, including open trade, predictable rules, strong US-led global system. Now, if tariff replaces trust here, that entire model is at risk. And Wong knows about it. so he chose clarity over caution. Singapore will stay open, that's what he said. He also said that Singapore stays competitive here. Singapore diversify the partners, protect its people, but it will not beg, it will not bow. Well, that's a big statement for a small country. Singapore doesn't shout, Singapore calculates, which is why this particular speech, it landed really hard. The question is, was this a direct hit at Trump? Not by name, but by message. Absolutely. It said that you can raise the walls. We will build resilience here. You can weaponize tariff. We will adapt without any fear. And here's what makes this particular moment critical. If Singapore, America's long-time trusted partner in Asia, starts openly pushing back, what does that say about the future of the US alliances? This wasn't anger, this was resolve. A warning to markets, a signal to Washington, and reassurance to Singaporeans watching nervously. In the end, Singapore-US ties are not collapsing, but they are being tested. And Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, he made it crystal clear, Singapore will not be one to flick. Well, in a world where power is getting louder, Singapore just spoke firmly, calmly, and on its own.
Happy New Year, and it is a Happy New Year, although it came very close to not being such a Happy New Year for a lot of people this year. I'm here to announce, in partnership with the Mint Hill Police Department and the FBI, that we have foiled a terrorist attack that was planned to take place on New Year's Eve in Mint Hill, North Carolina. The defendant here is an 18-year-old named Christian Sturtevant. He has been planning this attack for about a year, but he's been planning an attack for far longer than that. He was planning this attack in support of ISIS, and we have charged him with attempting to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization, that organization being, of course, ISIS. Now, this is still very much an active investigation. We had to act quickly here to protect the public, so we are light on details, but we'll tell you as much as we can, and Mr. Barnacle will probably tell you more than I will about those charges, but I thought I would give you an overview of what's in the federal complaint and the charges that we charged. So Mr. Sturtevant started on the internet. He started reading ISIS material, started going to ISIS websites, making TikTok videos, and eventually reached out to what he thought was a member of ISIS. In reality, was an undercover agent with NYPD in New York. He pledged his allegiance to ISIS with that undercover agent, and he disclosed his plans to, quote, do jihad soon. He then met a second undercover with the FBI, who he also thought was an ISIS participant, and he started to be very specific with his plans. He talked with that undercover agent, again, who he thought was ISIS. He talked about where he was planning to do this attack, which was at a grocery store and a fast food restaurant in Mint Hill, places that we go every day and don't think that we may be harmed. He talked about what means he would use to kill innocent people. He said he was going to wear a Kevlar vest and attack people with knives and hammers. And of course, he talked about when he was going to carry out this attack, which was New Year's Eve.
FBI special agents arrested him on December 31st as he was being released from a local medical facility. On Monday night, as Russ just said, the FBI's evidence response team conducted a search, an authorized search, at his home and on his cellular phone. What we found was a manifesto, which the federal complaint alleges contained detailed plans to execute a massacre on New Year's Eve as people shop, for the holidays. Without the swift action of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, New York City Police Department, the Mint Hill Police Department, and our partners at the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of North Carolina, we could be announcing a national tragedy. Instead, a terrorist attack was thwarted. Give a little background on Sturtevant. He's a U.S. citizen. He turned 18 in December of 2025. The JTTF collected evidence showing he turned his back on his country and his fellow citizens by pledging allegiance to ISIS with the intent of becoming a martyr. We allege Sturtevant was willing to sacrifice himself by committing a terrorist attack using knives and a hammer to support the murder, torture, and extreme violence that ISIS represents.
We're always considering additional charges. And so in this case in particular, because this is a very early and an ongoing investigation, we are certainly investigating and looking at other charges, whether that's a firearm charge or some other charge. Right now, we feel confident we have this charge, which is attempted material support of ISIS, but we'll see how the investigation unfolds from here. Thank you. Yeah.
What's up, guys? D7 back at you. And here we are. It's begun, and Maduro is already caught or gave himself up, but we've got warning signs all over the place that this isn't over, because Trump is saying that we're going to control Venezuela. We're going to seize everything, and we're going to manage it until he sees fit, because they don't want someone else to swoop it in there and then them having to deal with another Maduro type of situation. You've got the philosopher out of Russia, Alexander Dugin, warning that we're entering the real World War III right now. That this is what's going down. And the countries that are in Latin America, they got a choice to make. Either they're going to side with Trump in this, or there's going to be military action. A lot of things just went down in the midst of the past 24 hours. In terms of the bombings, they quickly got Maduro, but there was a lot of different places struck on the ground. Now, there could be blowback from this, from a lot of the people that were working with Maduro. There could be anything go down, from Venezuela to America. Trump has basically fired a shot across the bow, and he said, yo, the president of Colombia, he better watch his ass. That was his exact words, that he better watch his ass. And he pointed at Mexico and said that Mexico, something has to be done with Mexico. Oh, and let's not forget, him and Rubio just zeroed in on Cuba. And we're basically like, yeah, if I'm the government in Cuba, I'd be concerned right now. This goes back to the whole technate thing, the vision of Elon Musk's grandfather. It's basically just like the North American Union, the same setup. They want to control everything from Venezuela all the way up through Mexico into America, Canada. That's why they keep calling it the 51st state, and into Greenland, which he just told you again. That matches perfect that agenda. And that's exactly what they seem to be going for. It's not that any of these countries are going to be giving up their sovereignty, but they're going to be falling under an umbrella where they accept terms of economic and military relationships with the United States. They're either on one side or the other. Now, Russia and China not liking this, although Trump has come out and said that oil will keep flowing to his good friend Xi Jinping because they have a good relationship. Russia, on the other hand, is warning about all this, condemning the attacks. It's always something, isn't it? So, here on the world stage, it definitely is obvious the United States is clamping down on the Western Hemisphere. Like everything, from Venezuela through the Panama Canal, all the way up to Greenland. This is not going to go away, and I do expect some blowback of some sort here at some point.
President Donald Trump has just addressed a press conference about the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Trump has detailed the operation that led to Maduro's capture and spoke about what happens to Venezuela next. Trump says that the United States is going to run Venezuela. Washington is going to run the country at least until a proper transition can take place. Trump did not provide a timeline. He did not elaborate on what a proper transition means. Trump also spoke about American oil companies and their plans for Venezuela. He said that American oil firms will be going into Venezuela and investing in the oil infrastructure. Trump also added, and I quote, "We are going to make people of Venezuela rich and safe." Trump began his speech by lauding the operation that led to Maduro's capture. He said that not a single American service member was killed and not one piece of U.S. military equipment was lost during the capture of Maduro and his wife. Trump hailed it as one of the most stunning displays of U.S. military might in American history. He said it was an assault that the planet had not seen since the Second World War. And Trump also added that no nation could have achieved what the United States achieved. The American president said that it was the United States that had caused a massive blackout in Venezuela leading up to Maduro's capture. He said that American forces had planned a second wave of attacks in case they were required. But Trump added that considering Maduro's capture, a second wave doesn't seem necessary anymore. The United States has captured Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro. He also said that he saw the capture live and described it like watching a TV show. That's according to the president. The U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says that Maduro will now face the full wrath of American justice. Bondi says Maduro and his wife will face justice on American soil in American courts. And she called the Venezuelan president an alleged international narco trafficker. Bondi also highlighted that Nicolas Maduro has been charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy and cocaine importation conspiracy. Remember, the U.S. says that Maduro leads a drug cartel. It's called the Cartel de los Soles, which translates to Cartel of the Suns. The name is derived from the sun insignias that are used by Venezuelan generals on their uniforms instead of traditional stars. The U.S. charged Maduro with drug trafficking and what it described as narco-terrorism in March 2020. This was during Trump's first presidential term. The first Trump administration also offered a $15 million reward for information that could lead to Maduro's capture. When Maduro won the disputed Venezuelan elections in early January last year, America's outgoing Joe Biden administration raised the bounty on Maduro to $25 million. On August 7th last year, the second Trump administration further increased the bounty. They doubled it to $50 million. And Attorney General Pam Bondi accused Maduro of collaborating with other drug cartels like the Tren de Aragua and the Sinaloa cartel. The Trump administration had already designated those drug cartels as foreign terrorist groups. Finally, effective November 24th last year, the so-called Cartel of the Suns was also designated as a foreign terrorist organization. The U.S. also explicitly stated that Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, was the head of this terror group. Now it seems that Maduro's capture has paved the way for the U.S. to imprison him on terrorism and drug trafficking charges. Nicolas Maduro has served as the president of Venezuela since April 2013. He took over after the death of Venezuela's longtime leader, Hugo Chavez. Before rising to power, Maduro had reportedly worked as a bus driver and then a trade union leader. Iran's supreme leader has finally spoken after days of silence as protests over a collapsing economy continue to roil the Islamic Republic. In a rare public acknowledgement, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Saturday said that the economic demands of Iranian protesters are, quote, completely fair.
We talk to the protesters. They should talk. The authorities should talk to the protesters. But there is no point in talking to the rioters. The rioters should be put in their place. It is absolutely unacceptable for some people to come under various titles and names with the intention of destroying and harming the country, to stand behind the faithful, healthy, and revolutionary marketers, to abuse their protests and create unrest. We must understand the enemy's work. The enemy does not sit still. It uses every opportunity. Seeing an opportunity here, they tried to use it. Of course, our officials were and will be in the field.
The remarks come after nearly a week of protests and mark Khamenei's first known reaction since demonstrations erupted over Iran's plunging currency and deepening cost of living crises. Violence has shadowed the protests. Iranian authorities say 2 more people were killed on Saturday, taking the death toll to at least 10 as unrest shows no signs of slowing. The protests, now entering their second week, have spread to more than 100 locations across 22 of Iran's 31 provinces, according to the ISW-CTP. Protests took place in 17 out of Iran's 31 provinces between December 28th and 31st and have since spread to 5 additional provinces. The civilian government led by President Masoud Pezeshkian has tried to signal dialogue but has openly admitted its power is limited under sanctions and systemic pressure. Internationally, pressure is building. President Trump has warned Tehran against using lethal force, saying the United States would come to the rescue if peaceful protests and protesters are violently killed. Comments that drew sharp warnings from Iranian officials, including threats against U.S. troops in the region. All of this comes against the backdrop of Iran's June war with Israel and near strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, a war that has further strained an already fragile economy.
Now, protests continue in Iran for the sixth straight day. The demonstrators have spread to the city of Qom, which of course is a stronghold of the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The chants of death to the dictator are filling the streets of Iran. So far, the protests have spread to about 32 cities, including Tehran, Isfahan, Shiraz, Karaj and Fasa, and at least about 7 people have been killed in the clashes between the protesters and the security forces. About 33 people have been injured and at least 119 protesters have been arrested. The protests erupted because of Iran's dire economic conditions. The rial has plunged to historic lows, wiping out savings almost overnight. The price of food, fuel and basic necessities, they've all surged. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has taken a conciliatory approach and has acknowledged the public's economic suffering. He's even accepted that it is the government's fault for not doing enough for the economy.
People are dissatisfied. We are at fault. You are at fault. Do not go after America as the one to blame. Do not go after, I don't know, some other person to blame. It is we who must serve, and they must be satisfied with us. It is we who must properly manage our resources. It is we who must find a way and solve the problem. It is we who must make the effort and find solutions to these problems for them.
And amidst this turmoil, Iran's exiled Crown Prince Reza Shah Pahlavi has been weighing in on the protests and is of course extending his support. In a series of posts on X, Reza Pahlavi said, and I quote, "I salute you for standing courageously across Iran. You're making history, and those who have been killed by this regime over the past 2 days are truly the heroes of this land. Stay united, stay focused on the goal. Victory will be ours," he says. Now, Reza Pahlavi, remember, was born in Tehran on the 31st of October all the way back in 1960 as the heir to the late Mohammad Reza Shah and Empress Farah Pahlavi. He was officially named the Crown Prince in 1967. At the age of 17, he left Iran for some jet fighter training in the United States' Air Force. In 1979, his father was, of course, overthrown in the Iranian Islamic Revolution, and Reza Pahlavi could have never returned back from the United States of America and has been living in exile ever since. He is married to Yasmin Etemad Amini. They have 3 daughters, Noor, Iman and Farah. Meanwhile, the American President Donald Trump has warned that the US forces are locked, loaded and ready to go if, as he says, the need arises. He also said, and I quote, "If Iran shoots and violently kills the peaceful protesters, which is their custom, then the United States of America will of course come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go," says the American President of Peace. Now, this of course has prompted a response from Iran's Supreme National Security Council Secretary Ali Larijani, who has said that what is happening in Iran is pretty clear. Trump must realize that the US meddling in this internal matter will lead to destabilizing the entire region and will also destroy American interests. Meanwhile, several Israeli leaders have also jumped in with their support for the protesters in Iran. The memory of 2022 looms large. Then the death of Mahsa Amini in a morality police custody had sparked nationwide protests that challenged the government's authority, and that movement was violently suppressed.
Shifting focus now, Ukraine is not just preparing for the next strike, it's bracing for the Russian president's revenge, one likely designed to inflict heavy losses and send out a chilling message across the battlefield and beyond. We are saying this because Moscow has publicly warned Kiev that it will face inevitable retaliation for its attack on civilians in the Kherson region, while Ukraine's own spy agency has predicted that Russia will soon conduct operations that could lead to mass casualties. And on the ground, the situation is already severe for Kiev. Russia now holds roughly a fifth of Ukraine's territory. The pressure has been building along several key fronts, especially in the east and south. Analysts are saying Ukrainian forces face larger numbers, heavier weapons, and relentless assaults, forcing the units to fight under constant strain as the Russian forces continue to push forward. The latest attacks showing the intensity of that campaign. A wave of Shahed drones pounded Zaporizhia, crippling parts in what officials describe as one of the most significant barrages in years. The first blast reportedly showered shrapnel over cars and a residential block. A second strike hit a shopping mall, triggering a fierce blaze. Ukraine also reporting a Russian strike in the Kharkiv region that injured one person and killed several animals inside a wildlife park. In the latest, Ukrainian authorities claiming that 2 Russian ballistic missiles struck a 5-story residential building in Kharkiv, injuring at least 15 people, with many feared to be trapped under the rubble. These strikes coming only hours after Moscow accused Ukraine of launching a deadly drone strike on a hotel in the Kherson region, where people had gathered to celebrate the new year. Russia says at least 27 people died in what it called a terrorist attack in the Black Sea town of Koroly, a territory captured by Russia, remember, since early 2022. Kiev, meanwhile, firmly denies targeting civilians, insisting its forces strike only military sites. So that's where things stand. Now, a video shared by the local governor shows a building gutted by flames. As you can see, rubble piled high, charred debris scattered across what appears to be blood stains on the ground. At least one covered body lying at the scene, reportedly. What's the Kremlin saying? It says President Putin has received briefings on the incident and on the ongoing investigation. Russia's foreign ministry has condemned the attack and is warning Ukraine of consequences. This escalation follows claims from Moscow that Ukrainian drones tried to strike Putin's residence in the Novgorod region. Russia's defense ministry released footage of debris and flight paths, saying its systems destroyed the drones. Ukraine calls the accusation fiction. Russian officials, meanwhile, now claim they recovered data from one downed drone, alleging it shows the aircraft had locked onto the presidential compound, and say they shared that material with the United States. Listen to this.
A decryption of the memory contents of the navigation controllers of these drones, performed by specialists from Russian intelligence agencies, has irrefutably confirmed that the target of the attack was the complex of buildings housing the Russian president's residence in the Novgorod region.
And as winter deepens, so does the tension. Ukraine reinforces defenses, Russia signals retaliation, both sides preparing for what comes next.
A New Year message, a silent war inside an alliance, and Russia stepping into the middle of the conflict. Now, this story begins far from Moscow, on the southern coast of Yemen. Mukalla port, late in the night, ships moving quietly, cargo unloaded under tension. Then, airstrikes. Saudi Arabia targets the port after intelligence reports suggest that a weapon shipment has arrived from the United Arab Emirates. The destination? Yemen's separatist forces. And just like that, 2 long-time partners in Yemen, they were all of a sudden at odds. You're watching Times XP. My name is Dhuriti Yatri, and let's understand what this really means. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have fought on the same side in Yemen for years now. Both oppose the Houthis, both back different local groups. But their interests, they are not the same. Saudi Arabia wants a unified Yemen under its own influence. In the meantime, the UAE supports southern separatists who want to break Yemen apart. Now, that tension has been building quietly until now. Riyadh's message was blunt. Saudi officials warned that Emirati actions, they are extremely dangerous. They accuse Abu Dhabi of fueling the chaos here, of sending weapons that could turn allies into enemies. And they backed words with bombs now. Now comes the unexpected twist. Just days later, Vladimir Putin, he sent a New Year message to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Not a routine greeting, of course, not a protocol, a message of support. And in geopolitics, the timing is everything. So the question is, why is Russia getting involved here? Because Moscow, that particular country, it has ties with both Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Because Russia wants influence in the Middle East, and because divisions inside the Gulf, it helps Russia expand its role as a power broker. Putin, he didn't send just a message by accident. So here's the big question. Is Putin trying to mediate? Russia has played this particular role in Syria before, if you remember. And not just Syria, in Libya and across energy diplomacy. A Saudi-UAE split would weaken the regional bloc here. A Russian mediator would gain leverage. And don't miss this particular detail. The UAE is often described as an Israeli ally. Saudi Arabia is still walking a careful line here. So when Saudi strike hit the shipment linked to UAE-backed forces, this is not just a Yemen story, it's a regional power struggle. Zoom out a little further. Yemen is no longer just a civil war. It is a battlefield for Gulf rivalries, Iran versus Saudi influence, separatists versus central power, and now great power diplomacy. Putin's message may look very simple, but it carries a lot of weight. It tells Riyadh, Russia is listening. It tells Abu Dhabi, Moscow is watching. And it tells the entire world that the Middle East alliances are shifting, and that too again. This is not peace yet. This is positioning. Bombs on the port, warning between partners, and Russian president stepping into the frame. Because in Middle East, every message, every strike, and every silence, it matters the most.